So these are the best supplements when it comes to actually working with brain fog. After the past 10 years, working with people with ADHD, working with people with memory issues, focus issues, brain fog, this is definitely what I have found to narrow it down to what is actually working currently with my patients. So the first thing that we kind of understand with brain fog is when we look at the brain, there's many components that can contribute to brain fog. And one of the big things that I do see that I think is usually typically an issue is there's usually going to be lack of oxygen and blood flow and circulation to the brain itself. And when that's an issue, then we got to think of what are some supplements that can help implement that to start bringing more oxygen and nutrients to the brain and better circulation and blood flow. Especially as we age and get older, this becomes a common problem. And so, two of the best supplements that I've seen that really are effective like this is both ginkgo biloba and rosemary, because both of those do provide oxygen and nutrients to the brain, and it provides that circulation. And so it's really important to have that constant circulation and blood flow. And this really does help not only with brain fog, but it also can help with like migraines and headaches. I've found that it's been very beneficial for me as well as a lot of my patients when it comes to migraines and headaches, but providing that clarity of mind that you're seeking for when you're starting to have those brain fog moments. Now, to take this also another step further is sometimes we have to do a little bit more investigative work to understand why is the brain fog happening. And so what I usually like to do is do lab work to identify what is contributing to that. And so I've kind of narrowed this down as far as what are the most common things I do see that are typically deficient when we run lab tests on the patients that I do work with. And so one of the big ones is actually B vitamins. And some of the biggest ones that I do see that tend to be deficient is vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and vitamin B3. All three of those, when they're deficient, can contribute to brain fog because they're so important for production and modulation of different neurotransmitters that provide that focus and motivation, drive, memory, all sorts of different things. So, if you're deficient on this, you're going to have probably symptoms of brain fog. And so, when you want to, it's definitely a supplement that I will typically recommend is usually a B complex that have the activated form of B vitamins. And so taking that on a daily basis can make a big difference in help alleviating the brain fog if you are deficient in these specific areas. Now, another big one that I do see that commonly is deficient that can definitely contribute to the brain fog and even fatigue is your vitamin D levels. So when you're low, and in fact, I'd say about probably a good 30 to 50% tend to be significantly deficient in vitamin D levels, whereas majority of the population around the world tend to have an inadequate amount of vitamin D levels. So usually they're not above that 50 where I like to see it. And so if that's the case, then you want to supplement vitamin D3. And usually I like, if you are more on the significantly deficient side, you want to probably start with about 5,000 to 10,000 IUs a day for about 3 months, and then go down to about a maintenance dose of 5,000 IUs. But that's something that will help a lot with help alleviate brain fog. But also, if you're dealing with fatigue or chronic fatigue, that could be a main culprit to your other symptoms you might be experiencing with ADHD or other mental health issues. Okay. Now, another really big one too is zinc. So, zinc is something that I see pretty frequently. I would say about 32% of the time I will see this deficient. And so if that's the case, why this is important is because this also is an important known as a cofactor in helping build and modulating different neurotransmitters as well. And so if you're deficient in it, you can have symptoms of brain fog. And so what I like to use is to make sure that we're supplementing that if we do see it deficient. Now, I get this is a lot of labs to go over. So if you want, you can actually, there's a link in the description below that you can actually get access to my lab protocol that I use with all my patients, clients of what kind of labs to order that really kind of cover the basis of things with ADHD, memory, focus issues, brain fog. So you get that in the description below. Now, the next big one would be iron. Now, just like what I was talking about at the beginning, the brain requires oxygen and nutrients the brain requires that. Okay. So if there is lack of oxygen coming to the brain, you're going to have symptoms of brain fog. If there's lack of nutrients coming to the brain. And one of the important things that helps with that is iron. And so if you find that you're deficient, you're not only going to have issues of brain fog, but you could also have issues of focus, low energy. Like you almost feel like, do I have ADHD? Because you're having all these different ADHD symptoms, but maybe it's just because you're deficient in iron. And so if that's the case, you definitely want to make sure when you're testing for that, you want to supplement that. Now, I usually like more the liquid form of iron. There's different companies. I usually will use Gaia or other companies that don't worry, none of this is sponsored. There's no sponsored. I'm doing sponsored videos. But like this one that I typically like, I like liquid form because it's easier absorbed in the body. And also you don't tend to be constipated when you take liquid iron. That's why I like it versus like the capsule form. So that's usually what I'll recommend typically. Now, another big one is definitely, I mean, not as big, but it's definitely something I want to keep note that I will sometimes see my patients low in omega 3s. So especially when it comes to DHEA, that's more specific to the brain. If this is low, this could also be contributing to your brain fog. So obviously you want to supplement that. I like Total Omega by Barleans. It's really nice tasting. It's called Seriously Delicious. Tastes like a orange creamsicle. If you ever had the orange creamsicle popsicles, that's what it tastes like. That's why I like that one, because some of those other ones are just too fishy for me. So that's what I'll usually recommend. Of usually a high dose of DHEA and EPA if we see those are low. Now, now to take this a different angle is sometimes brain fog could also come from when it comes to different hormones. And one of the biggest ones has to do with cortisol. So cortisol has a lot to do with our energy, but if it is low, just like this patient was when we tested them, it can contribute to brain fog and chronic fatigue as well. So that might be the culprit of why you're experiencing these brain fog symptoms. And so if that's the case and you catch it, then you know exactly what part of the day that you need to be addressing the treatment. And so that's why we do this testing, is then we know what to implement and what part of the day we need to implement it. So in this case, about middle of the day, we would want to implement something like adrenal desiccator or some kind of adrenal support middle of the day to help alleviate that brain fog and that chronic fatigue that the person was experiencing. And sure enough, this always happens. Every time I see this, that generally will solve the case when we do see this issue right here when we test for it. Now, another really big one that people probably overlook, but I think is very important, very vital, is try to draw a good liver here. Okay, is the liver. Okay, so the liver, a lot gets detoxified through, everything gets ported to the liver. It helps with gluconeogenesis, which helps with different sugar processing, building and breaking that down. Also iron, as well as hormones, detoxification. Like so much happens in the liver, and since it goes through so much, this organ right here, it becomes an issue over time where brain fog can be an issue, focus can be an issue, low energy can be an issue. And so therefore we want to make sure that we're supporting it. And so one that I do like is called Livoplex. It has very specific key nutrients that are going to help support the liver, which is really vital. So it's specifically targeting the liver to supporting it. Now there's other things like milk thistle that you can use, and there's other liver support kind of supplementation, but you definitely want to make sure you're addressing that. And I would say a good majority tend to usually need this, typically, is to support, especially adults, because over time your liver has been taxed so much and been put through a lot that we need to be implementing that. Now, another really big one to also really consider is when I'm doing lots of different tests, and we do tests for like things like different neurotransmitters. And what I will see is definitely norepinephrine and also epinephrine tend to be significantly low on most cases, people, especially with people that I deal with brain fog or memory or focus issues or have ADHD, I will see that these levels tend to be low. Now, why is this important? Because stress, so both epinephrine and norepinephrine handle stress. And if you're not able to handle stress, that can cause brain fog symptoms. And so when we're looking at the neurotransmitter pathway, I mean, it's the breakdown of dopamine, which, that has a lot to do with motivation, focus, and drive. So if these are an issue, that could be the reason of why you're dealing with brain fog. And so there's two different supplements I like to use to help with stress and help improve your norepinephrine and epinephrine levels. And that is both L-theanine and rhodiola. Very powerful, very effective. They help with reducing stress, but also give you more of that clarity of mind and focus too, because helps improve alpha brainwave activity. And what that is it's basically a state of mind that helps you put you more in a relaxed state, but able to still think clearly and kind of drown out all the distractions. So this is why I really love, especially L-theanine. It's one of my number one recommended supplements I typically will recommend. mainly because it addresses more than just this, but that's for a different video for a different day. So obviously, if you understand that when it comes down to the right supplements for brain fog, it really comes down to what are you specifically deficient in. This is how it works so effectively for my patients, because we did testing first, looked at what needs to be looked at. What is the root cause of your brain fog situation, your focus issues? So if you would like me to order these types of labs for you to identify the root cause of your brain fog issues, then I'd love to help you out. All you got to do is just click on the link in the description below to booking your first appointment with me. And so again, you can do that in the link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for attending. We'll see you guys in the next live stream. Thanks. Bye.